Hi, my name is Kvasnicka,
And I'm Nabiha.
and we studied the perception of the color blue in our art presentation called Blue, a Pigment of Our Imagination.
So a little bit about the history of the color blue. Blue is the least mentioned color in the Quran. And it's not mentioned at all in Greek literature. When looking at the Odyssey, things that are supposed to be the color blue, like the sky or the ocean, are often mentioned as a blood red or a wine red.
So what does it really mean to discover a color? When scholars claim that blue is the most recently discovered color, they're really referring to the blue pigment that's used to dye clothing, which was first utilized about 6,000 years ago, which is far more recent relative to other clothing pigments. So our research aimed to analyze perception of the color blue or lack thereof using different lenses. Our first lens that we studied was a physical lens. So color is defined as light, which is an electromagnetic radiation that travels in waves and lie on a visible spectrum. The color blue falls between about 450 to 485 nanometers for its wavelength. So when we see a color, it's really that particular wavelength that's reflected off of the object. So then that wavelength enters our eye and goes to the back of our eye, which is called the retina. And the retina contains photoreceptors called rods and cones. Cones are what are used to sense colors. When light and colors reach the retina, it's processed through chemical receptors, which is then transmitted to the optic nerve, which leads to the occipital lobe of the brain to be processed. There are three different types of cones in humans. L cones, which are sensitive to long wavelengths, like red and orange. M cones that are sensitive to middle wavelengths, like yellows and greens. And S cones that are sensitive to short wavelengths, like blues and violets. So when we're talking about color blindness, there are three genes that result in different types of color blindness, and those genes lie on the X chromosome. Each gene provides instructions that create opsin proteins that make up three different cones. Each cone is sensitive to a different wavelength, and all three cones together allow us to see colors. Missing or damaged genes, which will result in missing or damaged cones, will result in different types of color blindness, like red-green color blindness, blue-yellow color blindness, or blue cone monochromacy.
Color perception includes both physical and linguistic mechanisms. Different languages have adapted to the physical and environmental needs for various colors and shades. The Whorf language hypothesis, or language acquisition theory, says that the structure of a language determines and influences modes of thought and behavior in the culture it is spoken in. Color perception is the combination of both linguistic and physical mechanisms. You would need both the anatomical mechanisms as well as the language we use to describe our culture and environment to fully understand how we perceive colors. Some examples include the concept of 3D colors. In the Quran, there's a story where the prophet ascended the heavens and saw 3D colors. Now, these could be words that they had in their language at the time and how they described the environment around them, but it could also be part of their physical mechanisms where they were able to see a different spectrum than us. Another example includes the Namibian Himba tribe in Africa. They were given this experiment and asked to find the color blue as opposed to the color green blocks. In the left picture, you can probably very clearly see the blue block, but the Namibian Himba tribe couldn't pick it out. We believe that is because they don't have a word for the color blue in their language. Whereas when Western population was asked to pick out the green block that was a different shade than the rest of the blocks, they couldn't pick it out. When looking at the picture on the right, the blue arrow points out the green block that is a different shade than the rest. The Himba tribe very quickly was able to pick which color green was different than the rest, because they have a word for different shades of green in their language.
So in conclusion, colors only exist to the extent that you can linguistically and physically perceive them, meaning that if we have different languages for colors, or if we have different genes or different physical mechanisms for colors, we could have the same wavelength, but we may be talking about them or seeing them differently. But that's not something that we can truly test, at least with today's technology. So we'd like to thank you guys for watching our virtual poster presentation. A special thanks to Dr. Odekirk, our faculty mentor, the Summer Research Program for funding this project in the summer of 2019, and the Undergraduate Research Program for hosting this virtual event. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us at the emails listed. Thank you.